Okay, part 3 of multiple representations of linear relations. So where we've come from is we have 3 different situations from the vice principals and how much you can pay them to buy out of your program. We do have the 3 different table of values that we created from our situation. Then we created 3 different equations and drew 3 different lines on the one grid. Okay, we talked about those and how we came up with those equations right here. Now we have a couple of questions here to answer, and I'm going to answer these. This kind of brings everything together in linear relations. As we've gone from a situation to a table of values to an equation, and last week we kind of took a sidestep and just worked on solving equations and the algebra behind that. So this week we're going to use that algebra into the kind of the conclusion of our linear relations unit. And once we know how to use the algebra within everything, this unit that's all we really want you to accomplish this unit, and that's what will set you up for grade 10. Okay, so right here we have I'm going to end up with I'm going to do Mr. Powers at the end. He is he's a special situation with his equation, but let's look at Mr. Baggio. By the way, if you printed this out and it worked properly, there were lines here like this. Okay, so say and assume you have $130 saved up to spend on detentions. Okay, so we have $130. So when we have Mr. Baggio's equation, C equals 20D, well, the $130, is that the cost or is that the number of detentions? That's the cost there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the C and we're going to put in $130 is equal to 20 times D. And we need to solve for the number of detentions we can buy for $130. So going back to the solving equations part. What's bugging your variable? Well, it's being multiplied by 20. What's the opposite of multiplying by 20? It would be dividing both sides by 20. And we will get $130 divided by 20 is 6.5 detentions. So 130 divided by 20, 6.5 detentions. Okay? So that means that for $130 we can buy out of 6.5 detentions. Now, ours would either be 6 or 7, but that's what it's saying here for $130. So the point on the graph is 6.5 and 130. And what this point represents is for 6.5 detentions, it will cost you $130. Okay? So that's what that point represents. So now let's take a look at Miss Harnrein. Well, Miss Harnrein, she charged, her equation was C equals 100 plus 5D. So we know that we have $130. So now let's go through our steps. What's bugging the variable? Well, right beside the variable I have a multiplied by 5, but then I have a positive 100. So let's get rid of that positive 100 and let's subtract 100 from each side. Okay? 130 minus 100 will leave $30 is equal to 5 times the number of detentions. Okay? So now we still need to isolate D. If we just divide by 5, because the opposite of multiplying D times 5 is dividing by 5, that will undo that. 30 divided by 5 will leave 6. Six is equal to D. Okay? So now I have the point 6 detentions for $130. And that's what that point means. 6 detentions for $130. Mr. Powers is different because Mr. Powers' equation is just the cost is equal to $160. So in this situation where you have $130 saved up, you can't even afford Mr. Powers. So you can't get anything from Mr. Powers. You need exactly 160 to have unlimited detentions from Mr. Power. Okay, so the next one. Let's say you saved up $160 now, and you want to spend that in equations. So you spend that on detentions. So let's take a look at this. So again, we have cost. Let's Mr. Baggio is an orange. Cost. Sorry. Cost is equal to 20 times the number of detentions. Well, now I have 160, so I'm going to replace cost with 160 is equal to 20 times the number of detentions. And to get rid of multiplied by 20, I simply divide by 20. And I'm going to get 160 divided by 20 is 8. Therefore, my point of detentions, because that's my independent, and cost is going to be 8 and 160. So $160, 8 detentions will cost me $160. That's what that point means. Ms. Harnrein. Her cost was 100 plus 5D. So I have a cost of $160 is equal to 100 plus 5D. Again, I'm going to subtract $100 from each side. And I'm going to get 60 equals 5D. To get rid of that, multiplied by 5, because I'm trying to isolate my variable. Divide by 5, divide by 5, and 60 divided by 5 is 12, is the number of detentions for $160. So 12 detentions cost $160. Okay? Mr. Power, again, a special situation.